Hi, welcome to my classroom. My name is Amy Firestone and I am a functional academics, functional life skills teacher in Salt Lake City School District. This is my 10th year in special education and my 5th year in this particular classroom setting. The focus of this video is going to be on how I've organized my classroom to optimize for student and staff success and just make it enjoyable learning. I wanted to give a quick presentation overview, so I'll begin by talking about my big picture classroom organization. I will also be covering how I organize my individual work and play areas for students, and then finally discuss ways I store and label supplies. So one of the biggest picture things is that I've decided after taking Angela Watson's 40-hour teacher work week course to break my room into 4 distinct areas and then assign a teacher to each location and have that area housed with all of the supplies that the teacher needs and the students need for learning. So we'll just kind of do a quick tour and then I'll go into more details for each table afterwards. So this is my yellow triangle table. It has the learning supplies in its cupboards for it. This is our central area where we have morning meetings, circle times. All of the students have their own color of cube, and when it's time to meet, we pull out the cubes and they can sit in them there. And they also, when we're done, we just slide them back. This is the green square table. This is also the area that I sit at. It has my standing desk, so I don't have to get up and down while I'm teaching. It's really nice and easy to just walk over. And then these are the supply towers for the students. At the beginning of the year, when my students were having a little bit more behavioral difficulties, I like that this one is a 2x6, or 6x2. Anyway, this size, so that it can fit in the cupboard. So I took out the shelving and I had them in there. Now that my students have adjusted to my classroom and climate expectations, I've been able to move it back out. So this is the green table. And then coming this way, we have the red rectangle area. I have this area, there's no teacher assigned to this location, it's the play area. And I decided to make this my play area because it has tile floor. And so when I have my kids have choice time, I can say, toes on tile, this is where toys need to stay. And it just helps to have a really nice visual boundary. Also, if things get messy, it's easier to clean up here. At the beginning of the year, I purchased some permanent red vinyl from Michael's, and I applied it here so it's really clear if you're stepping over and crossing into an instructional space versus the play space. Most of my high value reinforcers are in these cupboards. I have some of the larger items that wouldn't fit here. And then this is my area where I keep my like tactile, I call them tactile time items. So we have tactile time after each work session, and then choice time is like the more high value time right before lunch and then at the end of the day that students work towards. And these are labeled with labels that I made, and I've made it so they are attached with Velcro on the back. So it's really simple. If I decide I don't want Jenga blocks anymore, instead of peeling off packaging tape, I can just take this off and then I can laminate a different thing and put it on. And I have this system double sides, so whichever way students put it in, the item is clearly labeled. And some of my drawers, or some of my, not drawers, some of my bins need a little love, as you can see. But that's kind of the goal of what it would look like. And then last area is my blue circle table. And this is the area that I usually put my more compliant, better regulated students, just because the iPads are right behind it and the computers. And so it's very tempting for students, and so it's nicer to have the students that are generally older at this station. I also wanted to give a shout out to one of my colleagues who made these cute covers. So in the past, when I was teaching at Newman Elementary, I had metal chairs with plastic that would match the color of the table. Then my kids, I'm teaching first graders, and they're a lot shorter than my 3rd and 4th graders are, and so I had to switch down to a smaller chair size. And so she made me these little kind of square fabric coverings that I can wash. As stated before, I've divided my room into 4 main areas, and that is so I can support student and staff visual schedules. It provides my staff with greater autonomy and improves my room flow. It also allows for clear homes for supplies based on their color or label. And the reason I've chosen these specific colors is that they match the zones of regulation and they're not gender specific. They're also popular colors for elementary products, and so you can get a lot of things that are already color coded that way. I wanted to talk briefly about how my color coding system supports my students' visual schedules. So each of my students has their own customized visual schedule that in the past would list their 6 work times, and the background of each square would indicate the table location that they should be working at. So for example, student A would have their first work time at the green square table. They would then transition to the blue circle table for work time 2. And then for work time 3, they would remain at the blue circle table before work times 4 and 5, where they transition to the green table and then go back to the blue table. On the back of their individual schedule, I would post their penny sheet and reminders of my classroom expectations and rules. And you can see on the bottom right-hand corner that they can circle what it is that they'd like to work for. As I've continued teaching, my student visual schedules have evolved. This is what they look like for one of my current students. And for this student, I have created a schedule that indicates what his entire day looks like on a 1-page sheet. And the background color of each square indicates his correct location for that portion of the day, so it's easier to follow our 3rd school rule, which is be responsible, be in the right place at the right time. And that is a rule that this particular student struggles with, and so it's helpful to have the color coding to really reinforce where he should be at each given time. And often he'll say, I want to go to red rectangle table, and then I can point to the schedule and he might be on calendar page, and I will say, okay, look, right now we're at the yellow triangle table. We have yellow triangle table for calendar page, equal groups, and writing, and then you have red rectangle table for choice time. I've discussed how color coding my tables supports students' independence and self-direction through their color-coded visual schedules, but I also wanted to discuss how it benefits the staff and the teacher as well. I always try to operate at the intersection of what is best for all of the members of my classroom. One of the things that's particularly beneficial for staff is it clarifies their correct locations and expectations for running each work time, and it also provides them some autonomy over their own workspace and supplies. So I wanted to go over their schedules first. At the beginning of the year and throughout the year as students change and as their needs change, I create a grid of our work times, and then along the top where I've blacked out the student names are where each student is. And I usually assign 1 para to a particular table, so I'll have 1 para at the yellow table, 1 para at the green table, 1 para at the blue table. And if there is a staff swap, I indicate that in a box. And it just describes what the child is doing at a glance. But then I provide more detailed instructions for my staff, either in this format, so they have their own visual schedule to follow on the front side of a paper, and then on the back, where it's boxed out, is instructions on how to run the group. And that is from pre-pandemic. Afterwards, I made some revisions, and I think this is a more helpful format. And so their day would be organized left to right, top to bottom, and describes what they're doing for each work time. And then the color corresponds with which table they'll be running that group at. Each table space has a work caddy for the teacher to have access to supplies. And these supplies are standard between tables, which makes it really easy for staff to switch between tables as needed. And each of the items that it comes with the caddy, I've labeled using Avery labels, and then I put tape over them. So if the item gets moved to a different location, it's really easy for us or a student to bring it back. So each table comes with a hole punch, and I try to hole punch worksheets in advance, but sometimes I miss, and so hole punch. Each table has a stapler and tape dispenser, marker set, colored pencils. The scissors are all the same color as the caddy, so all of the green scissors are here, all of the yellow student scissors would be at the yellow table. I also like to have a pair of adult scissors, and these are kept in a safe location so students don't have access to them that's not supervised. I love the Avery dot labels. They are the exact same size as the top of the Elmer's glue, and so I can always get my glue sticks out at the beginning of the year, label them up, and so if a glue stick is around the floor somewhere, we can always take it to its home, and so that the items are about evenly distributed. Also in the supply caddies, there are token boards and vis-a-vis dry erase or wet erase markers. And I found this much simpler to use than the Velcro ones because they get dirty, you lose the pieces, that's frustrating. And this you can just draw on them and then wet erase and you're ready to go for the time. So that is what the supply caddies look like for the adults. And then student supplies are located in the top of the tower that is at that table. The next part I wanted to talk to you about is probably my favorite tip as a teacher, is having these really popular 10-drawer rolling carts. I take off the wheels because save space, and it's also I don't want them to be as tippable. Each student has their individual schedule, and it's color-coded with where they are working, and the order of the tower matches up the order of their schedule. And so all their teacher has to do is reach into the drawer, grab out the drawer, and then they have all of the supplies they need to run that. So for instance, place value, you can grab the drawer out. There's place value manipulatives, there's place value mats for doing addition, subtraction, some worksheets. And then as soon as that work time is over, we can put it back in. And then students can have a tactile break, and then we're moving on to this current student is working on digraphs, and so we have the Alconin boxes for that, some blending flashcards, and then again, it's just easy to put it back in its drawer. Sometimes I have models for my staff of like, this is like the exemplar of how I would like this task to be completed with the student. The worksheets are in the folder behind, and this is my favorite way to store place value blocks. We have the 10s over here, 1s, cubes over here, and then I also, for students' flexibility with numbers, we have some dimes and some pennies. So all of the supports that they need are in each drawer. As soon as that work session is over, all of the contents of the drawer can be put back in the drawer is put away, and it's ready for the next work session for the following day. I wanted to make a few more comments before we leave the topic of 10-drawer storage cart system. Because I've taught so many grades up to 5 at the same time, I have lots of materials and it's difficult to downsize given the wide range of ages and abilities of students I teach. So my solution has been to group like items together in towers and label them to create task bins or centers and then house them this way. And the towers can be designated as math, ELA, social emotional learning, etc. And when I'm getting new students, I consult their IEP goals and raid my existing stash to populate their active towers again. And once these skills are mastered, the items can be traded out with my storage system. And it's also how I have my individual student drawers for materials for students to take home. With my current group of students, I can no longer store the towers in the open. And so I realized that I could take out shelves and then use my cupboards more efficiently. Next, I wanted to share with you some other ideas on how I organize manipulatives and supplies that are not part of my 10-drawer systems. I'll also discuss how my custodians have helped me modify my environment. This cabinet, you'll notice it's a different color, gray than this yellow, and that is because I requested it to be built by our team. I reached out to my custodian. I had some students who loved, it's just the right height to launch themselves up and run back and forth across, which is dangerous. And I was like, let's find a different way to get your proprioceptive needs met. And it's just much easier to prevent a behavior than it is saying, no, stop. I'd rather the environment. So, and out of it, I got some free storage. So at the top, I have some science kits that we don't use too often, so I don't need easy access to them. And then these cabinets I have sensory supports and edible reinforcers. I keep the edible reinforcers next to so we can wash our hands before we just, and they're in individual containers. Keeping. One of the things that I wish I would have known as a first-year teacher is how beneficial it is to have standard size. So you'll notice These are all the same size at the top, so they're interchangeable. I can switch them out. Same with this. This is 6-quart Sterilite. I have them in green lids, white lids, blue lids, and red lids that you can get sometimes at like different seasons of the year. They have different ones, and then just the white is the standard one. And I have these boxes labeled with the Velcro dots. You can swap out the things, and it's nice because you can, whatever you're currently using as your manipulative can be closer, more easily accessible. And then things that you use less frequently can be higher. Next cabinet over, we have writing supplies. So each student has their own individual crayon box that's part of their tower of supplies and learning materials. But this is just kind of the overflow. So if a crayon breaks, we can go here, or if we're doing an art project that just needs red and green, can just grab out the red and green drawers. Then I also have some sensory alphabet materials. And then at the very top are some read aloud kits that I've made with props. That's really helpful for my students to engage with the stories. But again, since I don't use them as frequently, it's just easier to keep. This is probably my favorite part of my classroom. So I'm very big on keeping containers the same size. So you can see those are all the same. These are shallow, ideal for holding poster paper, but I wanted to use them to hold other things as well. So I've subdivided this very large flat space into smaller grid space to hold work materials. And so a lot of these, like the glue sticks and erasers, would already be part of teachers' supply caddies. But if they run out of glue stick, they can get a refill here. If they're running low on tape, they have access to that as well. And I've initially, when I did this, I was really pleased with how it was working, but the containers would shift and they'd get jammed and broken, and then you couldn't open the drawer, and that was frustrating. So I realized that I could solve that by putting Velcro dots on the bottom of the container and then on the drawer. And so now they don't move around, which is really helpful. And that's also how I've labeled these. So if I decide I really haven't used binder rings for a while, I could just take this out, put the binder rings in like the faculty workroom and say free up for grabs, and then I could easily swap this container out for something else that I would use more frequently. Next drawer down, I have my magnetic letters, and this is not the most efficient use of space, but since I am teaching students a lot of letter recognition, it's nice to have combined kits. So some of them are letters like this, some are the magnet letters, some are foam. So it's just like, these are all of my B's. In here, all of my C's, including some really large C's, and so just a variety of letters. And then when I'm having students do letter sorts, I can pull out, let's say B and D is a common confusion. So I could pull out B and D, and then students could use these as sorting containers too. And I've done that as well. So kind of dual purpose. Next drawer down, I have my mini eraser collection. And I use these primarily for teaching counting with correspondence, for quantity comparison. I also use them with Elkonin boxes for the sounds. And I like to use them as kind of to provide choice for students. So it's not just the same like material. They can say, like, I would like to use tulips today, or I would like to use polar animals. And so I have all of these, still working on the labels for some. This drawer is a mess, so we're gonna skip it. And then this last drawer is literacy supplies that are longer and needed some extra space. So we've got sentence strips, my rainbow boards with the magnetic letters, some sentence strips. So things that really are flat and use that space. So all of these, I have lots of these supplies already as part of individual teacher supply caddies. Like they'll have these V markers already. They should have expo markers at their caddy already. But this is the area where I keep the excess. So my paraprofessionals can supply themselves. If they're running low on vis-a-vis, they can come over here and get them. If they need more pencils, they can easily come get them themselves. And so that allows them some autonomy and also is easy delegation for me. Time for some more custodial shout outs. The photo on the far left is of my principal pretending to be one of my students. I had students that would love to run up along the counters back and forth. And so I requested filing cabinets to be installed along my red rectangle wall, and now that has eliminated that behavior. This cubby used to be on wheels, but I had a student break that, which actually works better because now it's pretty stable. It's on the floor, sturdy. And then I had one of my colleagues is very good with woodworking. And this is actually a bulletin board that, so it's a 4 feet by 6 feet bulletin board that she has secured here. I had a student who liked to climb over the top and roll off and then elope around the classroom. And so rather than saying stop, stop, stop over and over again, they can still get out a different way, but we have made this not an option here. And it also more clearly delineates this is the workspace on the green side. You come around and now you can have access to all of the fun stuff here. In conclusion, all ideas presented are meant to be generative rather than prescriptive, customized to your context, and focus on the minimum viable product and iterate from there.